Tattoo artists, what is the most uncomfortable job you've had? I was getting a tattoo, and this big homeless-looking guy walks in. He looks at me, my artist, and takes his shirt off. He turns around and shows us the dragon tattoo that is half complete on his back. He then looks at my artist and says, "Can you make that into, like, a fire truck or something?" My artist just exhales deeply, as I can guess this guy does this a lot or something, and says, "Give me a few minutes to finish this up." At a shop in Los Angeles years ago getting some work done, asked the same question to the piercing lady. She said a guy comes in regularly, full business attire, 3-piece suite, briefcase, Oxfords, a real Patrick Bateman type. The first time in he wants to get his dick pierced. So he goes to disrobe, and from his waist to his mid-thigh he is covered in Disney tattoos. Like covered. Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, Pluto, the whole gang. He also already has a dick piercing, actually he has close to a dozen. After his initial visit he came in every few months to add a dick ring or Disney character. She said he was the weirdest client she's ever had. Been piercing for nearly 10 years. Now. One time I had a rather elderly gentleman come in. He was in his 70s. Wore a pink 3-button polo shirt. Khaki shorts and golf shoes. He was in need of a jewelry change-out, as his old jewelry was old and tarnishing. He had his Prince Albert stretched to a diameter of 9/16 of an inch. And it had essentially caused the urethral lining to pucker out of his piercing and pissing holes. Quick change out and clean up, and he was on his way out the door. As he was leaving he asked for my name as he put his hand out for a shake. I told him my name and he replies, "Nice to meet you, I'm Dick." At this point I lost it and started to laugh so hard I cried. He realized his folly and laughed with me. I'll never forget that. Gonna beat that guy, and say not an artist but my friend is. He was asked to do a swastika and a paramilitary tattoo design, Northern Ireland, was uncomfortable and said no. He also got uneasy putting the 666 in the Thrasher logo on a friend of mine. I was getting a tattoo a couple months ago, and my friend came with me because he was thinking of doing some work himself and wanted to check the whole process out. He's asking the artist a bunch of questions, and he finally got to the big one. He leans in close and goes, "What's the weirdest shit you've ever tattooed on someone?" We got 2 really good ones. Well, the first paid job I ever had was a bunch of stars coming out of a girl's ass crack. I also did one where a guy wanted his girlfriend's name on his arm. Win, so that's not the bad part, they had already broken up. My friend is a tattoo artist and had some trashy lady and her gangster-looking boyfriend come in wanting nastiers tattooed across her back because it was her boyfriend's pet name for her. My friend refused to do it. After some debate, she told them that if she still wanted the tattoo in a year, she'd do it for half off, thinking the problem was likely to take care of itself. A year later, there they are again. Reluctantly, she relented, after explaining this would be hard to remove, hard to cover up, and reminding her that it was legit permanent. 2 weeks later, she was back wanting it covered up because they broke up. I got my first tattoo when I was 18. Went into some walk-in shop in downtown Vegas. First half of the tattoo goes well, outline is down and he started shading. Then he disappears for an hour. He finally reappears, goes, "Sorry man, had to tattoo a Playboy bunny on some chick's twat." Not a tattoo artist, but I think this belongs here. A couple of my friends started doing tattoos while they were in college. They all lived together and we partied at their place often. One of my friends has a notoriously hairy ass and got the Jesus shaves tattooed across his butt cheeks. A couple months after that, we played a game of hangman with a tattoo machine on that same friend's thigh. Last time I was getting a tattoo I asked my artist this question. Apparently at least once a year someone tries to get the tip of their dick tattooed. He apparently has an $800 flat fee and a $300 ball handling fee with a no refunds policy, earn it or burn it so to speak. Apparently a guy tried and lost about half an inch of the first line and bailed. Artists made $1,100 for 5 minutes of prep work and 1 second of actual tattoo time. I knew a guy that got his wife's name Wendy tattooed onto his dick. Apparently it only says WY when it's not erect. Well, he told me this one time when he was in Jamaica, he spotted this Jamaican guy with WY on his. And he asked if the guy's wife was also Wendy. Turned out it said, "Welcome to Jamaica, have a nice day." I'm no tattoo artist, but one time a tattoo artist walked into a bar and just yelled who can draw, and half-heartedly raised my hand and shrugged out a yeah I guess I can, and the guy says alright, come with me then. So next thing I know I follow this dude to a party, cracks open a few beers, asked if I ever tattooed someone before and I said no, and he said well you're about to. So we partied and got drunk, then he had me cover up a gang tattoo with a grenade after my whole 5-minute crash course into tattooing. I used to work with this guy who wanted to be a tattoo artist so bad, but he was horrible at it. He had his own gun and ink and would get off work and tattoo himself at home. His arms were covered with these incredibly shitty, not at all straight-lined stars, clovers, other little shitty symbols like that. Then he'd come into work and show them off and make fun of me because I never paid less than $300 for a tattoo. It was always awkward and uncomfortable for me. There's a good memoir called Tattoo Machine where the writer, Jeff Johnson, relates once an obese woman walked into his shop and she wanted a portrait of her childhood self tattooed on her stomach. Without a mouth. And that's the creepiest one that he left in. He admits leaving one out before telling that one. A friend of mine, a dude, gave another dude a Prince Albert. The guy getting the piercing came on my friend's hand immediately after getting the metal rod put in his member. My friend said that was his first and last Prince Albert. This happened when I was an apprentice. Some woman came in and wanted Heart Is Everything in the Disney font. The tattoo was huge and on her entire side. She had it printed out, and my artist had stenciled it and I had prepped the station. Well, he was tattooing her, and I realized that everything was spelled incorrectly, he hadn't gotten to it yet. So I frantically told him that he needed to go smoke a cigarette with me. After a great deal of nagging, he went out to smoke with me and was pretty pissed off about it. I told him about the incorrect spelling and he basically shat bricks. We went in and talked to this woman about it, and even after explaining that it was spelled incorrectly, she insisted that was how it had to be. My ex-husband is a tattoo artist. He had this older lady that would regularly come in and get work done. She eventually asked for the hip bone, panty line tattoo, roses and guns, I think. I got the privilege of being in the room while ex-hubby did the tat. Every time he LD touch her with the gun, she would immediately tense up and then let out a huge queef as she was untensing. I worked at a pharmacy as a lab technician, and a 13-year-old girl and her dad come over to bring some prescriptions. Looking at my earrings, he asked where I got my ears pierced. I went to Ardeen, an equivalent to Claire's, and had such a bad experience with terrible infections that I begged the father to bring his daughter to a professional pisser, where everything is proper and well done. He said he was too scared to bring his daughter to this kind of place, didn't trust these kinds of people and preferred Claire's. I was really tempted to unprofessionally answer, why the fuck do you ask for my opinion if you don't give a crap? I was getting a tattoo at my mate's shop. Normal-looking guy walks in and puts a down payment, like $100, on 7 swastikas on his face. Apparently he didn't come back for the appointment, which my friend was pretty stoked about. Free $100. Bowser, on a surfboard, playing the electric guitar. Behind him was a cross. Behind that, a pot leaf. Bowser was looking over a pair of sunglasses. At the top of that tattoo, it said, "Happy birthday, Rick." Rick was a friend of the patrons who had a birthday coming up. I asked the guy who was tattooing me the same question. He said he tattooed a fly on this guy's penis, and the weeks following his appointment the guy would pop his head in and say he doubled his money and then would leave again. Finally, the tattoo artist stopped him and asked what he meant. Turns out he would be sitting at the bar and would make bets with people who didn't believe he had a fly tattooed on his dick. He'd win every time and doubled the money it took him to get the thing in the first place with each bet. All I can think of when I hear about shamrock tattoos is I hope that guy doesn't end up in prison. I don't know if the tattoo being on there but would help or hurt their chances of running afoul of the Aryan nation. Serious answer, I once saw a documentary interview with some members of the Aryan Brotherhood who said that anyone who came into the prison with a shamrock tattoo had to have it permanently covered in public by clothing, electrical tape, marker, whatever, or have it removed. I think in the case of a butthole tattoo, you would just not tell anyone and keep cheeks clenched and back to the wall during shower time, which is not a bad idea in the first place. I am fighting with my ex right now because he thinks taking our daughters, who are well past infancy, to Claire's for gun piercings is fine, and neither they nor I will agree to it. It's going to be quite a bit more expensive to get it done properly, but I think they're worth it. And don't get me started on piercing infants' ears. The idea of causing my baby pain for no reason other than my vanity is abhorrent. I live in an area where it's part of the culture. Please stand your ground. I worked at a Claire's store, icing. If your daughters are against it, there is no way you should push it on them. Especially since there is a risk of infection due to less than stellar hygiene practices. All they do is wipe the table with an alcohol wipe, wipe the gun with another wipe, and wipe the person's ears. The guns are just wiped down between people. It's appalling. Spending the extra money on a legit shop is so much better. It was kinda surprising how many of them consider themselves artists first and tattoo people second and find the job really monotonous until someone comes in wanting something spectacular or something they can just run wild with. Well, they are putting art on people's body and it takes years and years of practice to master. So I think it's fair to call oneself an artist first in that field. I'm a cook and I love my job, but there's still monotonous aspects of it. A love or passion for what you do doesn't change the pace of it. It was kinda surprising how many of them consider themselves artists first and tattoo people second. Well, it's honestly the most accurate way of looking at it. They're just as much of an artist as a sculptor, a painter, a 3D modeler, anyone. They just work with a different medium. Edit, holy shit, I did not expect this to blow up. I did not mean this in a rude way whatsoever. Tattooing is both technically challenging and also aesthetically challenging. It takes true skill, talent, passion, and hard work to become a great tattoo artist. They've earned that name for a reason. Humans sure are an interesting bunch. One day, we're sending autonomous craft hurtling through space, and the next day, we're semi-permanently inserting objects in our butts. Edit, my GF is jealous of me for getting gold on a comment about butts. I once came home to find one of my friends, who was neither a tattoo artist or pisser, branding another of my friends. He was using a piece of coat hanger heated with a lighter to make the pirate brand a la Captain Jack Sparrow. I'm a fat, tattooed woman, and I specifically chose places for tattoos that wouldn't distort too badly, or have a tattoo in a fold or something. I may be fat, but I just see it as having a bigger canvas for the tattoos. One of our artists was tattooing a college gal a few weeks ago while her friend stood, chatted, and watched. The friend was mid-sentence and all of a sudden we all hear a loud bang. The friend fainted and just hit the floor. Once she came to, I walked her over to the bed I tattoo on. I had no appointments that day, had her lay down, and gave her some water. She drank that, her soda, and ate some snacks out of her bag, and we made sure that she would not be the one driving them back up to campus. The whole thing was weird. She said she didn't really have a history of fainting. I don't know how anyone here would have handled a customer owing mid-tattoo. Sounds pretty traumatizing. My personal rule was the child had to consent to getting them done. I've seen so many of my co-workers have to hold down a screaming child because they did not want it, but mommy or daddy did. I see getting earrings done as a rite of passage. I got mine done when I was 5, and I wanted to be a big kid. Please stand your ground. I worked at a Claire's store, icing. If your daughters are against it, there is no way you should push it on them. Especially since there is a risk of infection due to less than stellar hygiene practices. All they do is wipe the table with an alcohol wipe, wipe the gun with another wipe, and wipe the person's ears. The guns are just wiped down between people. It's appalling. Spending the extra money on a legit shop is so much better. A lot. When I was still piercing, I had a lot of older women come in to get their genitals pierced in various fashions. One was an employee with the Catholic school board in town here. I went to a Catholic school that was attached to the school board in the town I live in, so I recognized her. Luckily for me, she didn't recognize me. But you'd never expect things like that from some. Some older ladies just want something fun for them and they're so's to look at. Honestly, if that guy was straight up throwing a fit, he seems like a dick. Work is work, and not everyone wants a fancy detailed back tattoo of a ~koi. Edit, I'm a dumb bass. Edit, it's all cool. Dude wasn't a dick. My apologies. I got the impression that he was wanting someone who was newer and lower cost to do it so he didn't feel like he was ripping off the girl. But I guess there are two types of people, eh? Smiley face. I was in the office while my tattoo artist was talking to some prospective clients and one of them said, really? $100 minimum? You can't do it cheaper? I mean, it's a simple tattoo, so the artist says, look, if you want a price shop for a tattoo, by all means, price shop. I'm sure you can find someone who do it out of their kitchen, and you can catch Hep C, and it'll only cost $20. A month later, you're gonna come back here, and I'll fix it for you and do a cover-up. That's gonna cost $200 though, because I'm going to have spent extra time figuring out how to properly cover it up. So do you want a $100 tattoo right now, or do you want a $200 cover-up? True. It's pretty ingrained in Hispanic culture though. Been arguing about it with my fiancée. She had hers done when she was a baby and they're fine, but I would prefer to give my hypothetical daughter a choice. Edit, just to clarify, I don't personally find earrings on kids tacky, I would just prefer to give the kid the option. My cousin's daughter got them done, she's the cutest little diva princess so she loves it, but not all kids are the same, why no? My daughter is 17 and wants to get her ears done, but we have different last names, I remarried after her dad, and they want proof we are related. Apparently looking like a young clone of me doesn't count, they even said we know you're her mom, but we have to have the paperwork. So I have to bring in her birth certificate, my divorce paperwork and new marriage certificate. She needs a picture ID. It's a pain, but I admire their dedication to consent. Edit, this is a highly recommended tattoo piercing shop, they are not allowed to perform anything on anyone under 18 without parental consent or they lose their license. Both of us are okay with jumping through a few hoops so she can wear some. I got my ears pierced at Claire's when I was 15. After the requisite amount of time, I went to take them out, and they wouldn't budge. My mom tried, my aunt tried, almost every family member and friend had a shot at it. Eventually, we went to the doctor and they cut them off with what looked like very thin wire cutters. I was so scared to get my ears pierced again after that mess. There's no way I would take my child to a place like that. Oh my god, you just gave me a flashback. I remember being 8 years old, crying, trying to get those horrible Claire's piercing earrings out after 8 weeks with still tender ears. IRC, they told me at the store that they use like more locked up or permanent earrings to pierce so they don't get removed too early. My dad had to pull them out, I don't know how he did, but he did with his bare hands. I will never myself or any future children a piercing at Claire's. That experience made my second set of ear piercings at a professional piercing shop in Argentina a cakewalk. It is indeed a lot. At the shop I work at, a very mousy middle-aged balding businessman came in with his briefcase and suit around 10 p.m. I thought he was delivering something, but he spoke quietly with the pisser, and they went to the back room. Oh. I had my wedding band tattooed, for practical reasons. It took about 15 minutes, and was obviously going to be well under the artist's hour minimum. He was upfront and professional about it, and it was fine with me. There's obviously a fair amount of overhead involved in setting up, whether you spend 5 minutes or 5 hours actually working. My Spanish grandma and her sister took me to get mine done when I was only a few months old against my mum's wishes. I hate having my ears pierced to this day, and I've not worn a pair since I was about 2 because I would kick up a fuss even then about having had them done and hating them. Edit, added a word for clarity. I, Hispanic, had mine done when I was 1. My parents said I only cried because they had to hold me still, but the actual piercing part barely made me blin. They just had me wear little gold studs that I never took off. I only stopped wearing that same pair when I was 7 and one fell down the drain. No regrets, I'm happy they did it. I don't think it's tacky at all, so long as the baby doesn't have dangly or particularly showy earrings. Oh my god, you just gave me a flashback. I remember being 8 years old, crying, trying to get those horrible Claire's piercing earrings out after 8 weeks with still tender ears. IRC, they told me at the store that they use like more locked up or permanent earrings to pierce so they don't get removed too early. My dad had to pull them out, I don't know how he did, but he did with his bare hands. I will never myself or any future children a piercing at Claire's. That experience made my second set of ear piercings at a professional piercing shop in Argentina a cakewalk. This reminds me of how my poor husband was forced by our midwife when I was pregnant to look at my cervix. She had the speculum in all spreading things open and shone a flashlight in and was like, look at this cervix. No, come look at this. Do you see that? Your baby has to come through that. He gamely took a look. I was just trying hard not to laugh at him. Friend got a piercing when we were in Catholic school. He got told he can't have it on in school. He took it off when he got to school, put it in when he left school. A fresh piercing with an earring kept in his pocket for 5 hours of school. That would be awesome. Ara ye matey. How you be? Slips peg leg loop, now your lip is pierced. Oop, now your ear. Oop, now your eyebrow. Oop, now you're Johnson. You meet the weirdest and nicest people in truck stop bathrooms. If you were to go to a hotshot tattoo parlor in Dallas, you pay for the consult too. I think it was $100 last time I asked, went with a different artist in the same studio, good guy. Granted, that gets credited to your final ink, but that way he's not out very valuable time if you just fuck off. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.